Why are you here this morning? Because you're next. I was talking to Andy Young, and you know who he is and what a trailblazer he's been in this nation, not only working in our government, working in the civil rights movement, and just seeing so many things happen. And we were having a conversation, and I was talking about the complexities of the time that we're in right now, the controversy that goes along with it, and the criticisms that you have to deal with, and all of that. And I said, you know, it's just terribly perplexing times now to be a leader and to be out front. He said, that's not anything new. I was looking for a little sympathy hookup, you know. He said, I was with Dr. King. He said, they were fighting him on every side. He was put out of his denomination. I'm not talking about, you hear about the FBI side and all of that, but you don't hear, because those who are preaching and saying they are the next Dr. Kings were the very ones who put him out. He said they were fighting him internally, they were fighting him externally, they were bugging his house, they were fighting him on every side, not to mention your own personal problems. And he said, yeah, some kind of way, Bishop, he said, we managed to make progress. He said, I don't know how we did it. He said, there was always murmuring and complaining and bickering, and we didn't know from day to day what was going to happen. We didn't agree amongst ourselves while we were marching. Sometimes we were debating issues, but some kind of way, we made progress until eventually we began to understand that we could not wait for the controversy to stop for the movement to go forward. And so I thought it was worth telling you, since you might not get to talk to Andy Young, that you can't wait for the controversy to stop for your movement to go forward. You just got to let them say whatever they're going to say, fight them back, and keep on building. I'm going to borrow one of Paula White's statements and say, slap your neighbor upside the head and say, you're next. Can I go just a little bit further? Surely you ought to think that Jesus was a great leader. Watch Jesus when he says to his disciples, who do men say that I am? Here comes controversy. You're controversial, Jesus. Some say that thou art Elias. Some say that thou art Jeremiah. Some say that thou art Esaias. And you are so controversial that your enemies don't agree. Now that's when it's getting good. When your enemies don't agree, you're getting good. Then he says to his followers, who do you say that I am? Now, before I quote what Peter said, let me underscore that it is not Peter's statement that amazes me. It is not the statement of the one that amazes me. It is the silence of the 11. Who do you say that I am? 11 disciples said nothing. So often when you are in leadership, you are leading people who do not know who you are. If you can get 1 out of 12 to understand who you are, then you're doing as good as Jesus anyway. You're doing pretty good. If one guy will speak up for you and say, thou art the Christ, I know who you are. You're the president of this company, I know who you are. You're the mastermind behind this project, I know. Most people who are sitting under you don't have a clue who you are, and they don't value who you are because they don't understand what they have. And if you don't understand what you've got, you can fool around and lose what you got because you don't understand the magnitude of what has been given. Again, to him whom much is given, much is required. That's not just on the person on the stage, but it's also on the people who are following him. It is much required of you to follow somebody close enough to have a clue who you've got. Anybody who's in leadership, you're leading somebody who doesn't know who you are, you're struggling to do it. Because you're being underappreciated, you're become frustrated. People will handle you any kind of way because they don't know the value of what they have. Your temptation is to walk away from people you're trying to help who don't know who you are. One God says, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the true and living God." I know who you are. I figured out, I have followed you long enough to know who you are. And on the basis of that knowledge, Peter gets to preach the inaugural message at the birthing of the church, because you cannot pass your mantle to people who do not know who you are. I don't have time to do this justice, because look at Elijah and Elijah. And Elijah says, "I want a double portion of Elijah's spirit." He said, "No, not yet. You haven't seen enough. When you've gone through this with me and that with me and the other with me and that way, and if you're still here when I'm taken up, now I'm going to give you a double portion of my glory, because you can't have my mantle if you don't know who I am." Marriages are being lost because of it. Companies are being lost because of it. Family relationships are torn. Anytime you have any kind of structure and you have to lead people who don't know who you are, you're in trouble. I want to move on. Can I go further? This is my last Sunday to do this, so just bear with me just a little bit. The other thing I want you to understand that you have to have in order to be a leader is commitment. You have to be the last one to leave the ship. If you're going to lead, you have to hang tough. You cannot inspire people to follow your lack of commitment. You cannot inspire people to follow your lack of commitment. You cannot inspire people to follow your lack of commitment. People follow what they admire. You have to have the mentality that I'm going to be committed to this. And if you're going to be a great leader, do not commit to more than your competence. Have you ever seen people that volunteer for everything? I'm going to be in the choir, I'm going to be in the usher board, I'm going to be in this, I'm going to be in that, and then I'm going to be in that. I'm going down to Salvation Army, I'm going to do this. And their heart is so big that their head is shrinking. And in order to be effective, didn't that give you a visual? Did you say, like the wicked witch of the west, I'm shrinking, I'm shrinking, I'm shrinking. That's what's happening to the brain. It's just shrinking, because anything you're in charge of, you have to be committed to. You have to be committed to it. And if you're not committed to it, you're not going to be effective at it. And in order to be committed to it, you can't do it just for the check. You can buy competence, but you cannot buy commitment. Commitment has to come from the heart. It's a heart thing. It's not a check thing. It's a heart thing. It's not a check thing. And I want you to close the gap between where you get your money from and what you're committed to. Because if you're making money over here, but you're committed over there, eventually it's going to pull you apart. What you really want to do is be able to make your money where your commitment is, and then you will get paid for doing what you would do for free. Does anybody understand what I just said? That's a good old shouting point right there. You're going to lose everything. You won't come out of this. You're not smart enough. You're not bright enough. You waited too late. You should have started younger. Those are the kind of voices that we all live with. For me, our ministry was growing. We lived in a nice house we'd ever had, driving a nice car, living from paycheck to paycheck, but making it. Every night, I lay down at night. After she goes to sleep, I hear the voices. Those voices are the kind of voices that stop you from buying into your own life. Stop you from enjoying the good times and believing that they will last. The anxiety and the pressure and the strength that it took to get from where you were to where you are doesn't go away, so you don't really believe it's yours. You're driving it, but you don't really believe it's yours. And you're scared to relax and really rest in whatever it is or whoever it is, because everything else went away. Maybe this will go away too. We talk about faith for bad times, but you also need faith in good times. To actually believe the goodness of God is not going anywhere. To silence the voices that keep saying you'll never make it. You're about to lose everything. Fear gets in your heart. See, I know what it's like to be poor. And I know what it's like to be without. And I know what it's like not to have dinner for my kids. Returning to that the idea that could happen is terrifying. And the enemy always has some sort of tool or memory or situation that he uses to terrify you, even though the good times are here and the dream is there, the blessing is there, and the goodness is there. But there's always this haunting, nagging defiance that says, don't you relax. You're not worth it. You don't deserve it. And it's not going to last. Resting in what God has done is often more difficult than receiving what God has done. To rest in it, to believe that it will last, to believe that you will last, that love will last, that life will last, that that good times will come, that things will be better, is difficult because of the voices. And you are what you eat, and the voices are the food that feeds your faith or fear. So if you want to change your diet, you can change your outcome. But you have to stop talking to yourself the way you do. Because if you continue to talk to yourself the way you do, you will always be where you've always been. It is what you say within yourself that heals you. The woman with the issue of blood said to herself, if I can but touch the hem of his garment, I'll be made whole. There was no scripture to validate that. She could say, she wasn't quoting Deuteronomy or Numbers or anything like that. It's just something she said to herself. There was no doctrine around it. We've never seen that happen before. But she said to herself, if I can but touch the hem of his garment, I'll be made whole. Wow. And all the while she was crawling, she kept saying over and over again, if I can just touch, if I can just touch, if I can just touch, if I can just touch the hem of his garment. And without Jesus' permission, and without the support of the disciples, she creeped up on him and snatched a miracle. Snatched it. Snatched it because of what she said to herself. You see those voices that say what you can't do, what you can't have, what you can't be, what's not going to last, what's not going to work, is how the enemy pulverizes the promises of God in your life. And it takes word to combat word. That's why when Jesus was in the wilderness and Satan was throwing word at him, he was throwing word back. And what we have to do is put word on word. I'm blessed. I'm blessed in the city. I'm blessed in the field. I'm blessed in my uprising. I'm blessed in my downsetting. I'll be blessed into my old age. I'll be blessed when I'm an old man. My grandchildren will be blessed. My body is blessed. My mind is blessed. My head is blessed. I got this. I can handle it. I can do it. Bring it on. Here it is. That kind of talk, saying that to yourself, drives back the other voices of negativity that we all have creep up behind us and tell us that we're not capable and we're not competent and we're not gifted enough and we're not good enough or we waited too late or God is punishing us. To talk back to those voices shuts the enemy down. The pressure I was going through, I was causing. Because the pressure I was going through was coming from the things that I allowed to reverberate in my head. And I'm wondering if there are things echoing in your head right now that are stopping you from living your best life because you will not silence them by speaking back. You shall have whatever you say. So says the word of God. You shall have whatever you say. If it's betrayal, you shall have whatever you say. If it's a life without love, you shall have whatever you say. It doesn't just work positively, it also works negatively. You shall have whatever you say. She touched him and she was made whole. And he says, who touched me? which means he's oblivious to what's going on. This is all happening in her head.
Come on.
The whole thing happened in her head, and the Lord, who is omniscient, asked a question, who touched me?
Yes.
And the disciples, wanting to be important, answered him, said, everybody touched you. He said, no. That's not what I'm talking about. Everybody around me don't touch me. Everybody around me don't touch me. You missed that. Everybody around me don't touch me. Just because you're around me don't mean you touch me. Somebody touched me. Somebody touched me. And she came out from the crowd sheepishly and said, it was me. It was me. She got a miracle while Jesus wasn't looking because of what she said to herself.